Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we continue with the heart-wrenching and turbulent story of the single mother, lythica. In the previous episodes, lythica has been staying temporarily at Ho's house, the man who once risked his life to save her in a moment of danger. But despite Ho's care and the relentless attempts of Tony's father, to win her back, lythica's heart still belongs to only one person. Hùng. Hùng, the righteous police officer, the man lythica loves deeply, even after learning that his own mother was the one who pushed lythica to the brink of death, chose to forgive her. To Hùng, lythica is everything, the reason he keeps standing strong. Yet, no one could have foreseen that fate was about to take another devastating turn. Hung's mother, after a long period of hiding, was finally tracked down by the police. A tense and breathless chase unfolded. Desperate and panicked, with no way out, she suddenly ran toward the riverbank, and in that moment of despair, she made a shocking decision that left everyone stunned. Hùng was at the scene. Seeing his mother teetering on the edge of the bridge, sirens blaring and the raging river below, his heart shattered into pieces. He cried out, calling for his mother in desperation. On one side was the justice he had sworn to uphold, and on the other, the unbreakable bond of a son to his mother. What will Hùng do when forced to face this cruel reality? And what about lythica? Will she have the courage to stay by Hung's side and face this unbearable pain with him? Or will this mark the beginning of a fracture that can never be healed? Everything that happens in today's episode will leave you unable to look away. This is not only a battle of law and justice, but also a battle of the heart, a fight between love and responsibility. Stay tuned, because what comes next will leave you breathless. The enormous debt that had once weighed heavily on Hung's shoulders had finally begun to ease. Thanks to his relentless efforts, combined with borrowing from friends and close acquaintances, he had managed to pay off nearly 70% of the money owed to the loan sharks, the very people who had caused him countless sleepless nights for months. Those long nights spent bent over his desk, the days he worked himself to exhaustion just to earn a little more, every coin, every bill, all of it was Hung's painstaking effort to pull himself and lythica out of the vicious cycle of debt. But the road ahead was far from over. The remaining 30% of the debt loomed like a massive boulder pressing on his chest, forcing him to find a way to keep going. He even considered working night shifts and taking on grueling side jobs that most people wouldn't dare touch, anything, as long as it meant earning money. There were nights when he returned home just before dawn, sweat soaking through his shirt, only to gulp down a glass of water before rushing out again. Seeing him like that tore lythica's heart apart. One night, as the two of them sat on an old wooden bench under the faint glow of a yellow street lamp, she couldn't hold back any longer. Staring at Hung's exhausted face, she softly said, "Hùng, maybe we should sell that piece of land. Or, if we really have to, we could even sell this house. I can't bear to see you suffer like this anymore." Hùng remained silent for a long time. He looked up at the dark night sky, his eyes heavy, as if carrying 1,000 unspoken burdens. Then, he turned to her, holding her hand firmly. "I can manage, lythica. I'd rather stay up all night working, rather carry twice the weight, than see us give up what's ours. That land, this house, they're not just property. They're proof of everything we've been through. I can't let them go." lythica fell silent. She knew Hùng was pushing himself to his very limits, but in his words, in his eyes, she saw an unwavering determination. He didn't just want to repay the debt. He wanted to hold on to their hope, to protect the place where they could start over together. She leaned her head gently on his shoulder. Her quiet sigh was so soft it seemed to dissolve into the night breeze. In that moment, lythica felt both an aching tenderness and a deep pride for the man beside her. Yet deep down, one fear still gnawed at her. If things kept going this way, would Hung be able to endure it? Hung never said it out loud, but he knew his strength was slowly wearing down. The endless nights left dark circles under his eyes, and his hands grew rough and calloused. But every time he looked at Hoai and Tony, the innocent little boy who had no idea about the storms the adults were facing, Hung reminded himself of one thing: he could not afford to fall. Even though Hung's mother was the one who caused all of Hoai's suffering, Hoai's heart had never once stopped loving him. She understood that he was not at fault. He had never wanted any of this to happen, nor could he control his mother's actions. Deep down, Hoai knew that Hung was just another victim in this tragedy. Hung had never treated her badly. It was only the turmoil within his family that had dragged them both into this cruel storm. And because of that, Hoai couldn't blame him. On the contrary, she loved him even more, because in Hung's eyes, she saw not only love but also the torment and guilt of a son whose mother had done the unforgivable. On many late nights, as they sat together in their small room, Hung would hold Hoai's hand tightly, his voice hoarse with exhaustion but unwavering in determination. Hoai, I swear to you, I will never cover for my mother. She must face the law for everything she's done to you. I owe you an apology, and I won't let you suffer another injustice because of her. Hoai's eyes trembled slightly. She didn't say a word, only leaned her head gently on his shoulder. She knew how much pain Hung was enduring, torn between filial love and justice, but still, he chose to keep his promise. That very resolve was what made her trust him even more, made her believe that no matter what, even if the whole world turned against her, Hung would always stand by her side. To Hoai, love wasn't just about sweet words, it was about walking through the darkest days together. And Hung, with his weary but steadfast gaze, had proven himself worthy of all her trust. Inside Hung, the guilt still burned like an unquenchable fire. He could not forgive his mother for what she had done to Hoai, but neither could he completely hate her. There was only one thing he was certain of: he would never allow the woman he loved to suffer another second because of someone else's mistakes. And in that very moment, Hoai squeezed Hung's hand a little tighter, as if to tell him without words that she understood, she believed in him, and she would stay by his side, through every storm or calm that lay ahead. Today, when Hung visited Hoai and little Tony, the atmosphere in Ha's house felt warmer than usual. Ha and his mother had prepared a simple yet heartfelt meal. Tony ran around the dining table, chattering happily, while Hoai occasionally glanced at Hung with a soft smile, a rare smile after so many exhausting days. The dinner seemed peaceful, but deep inside, Hung's heart was still heavy. He had never truly felt at ease since the truth about his mother was revealed. Still, he tried his best to hide his worries, just to give Hoai and Tony a fleeting moment of happiness. Suddenly, the shrill sound of a phone ringing cut through the calm. Hung looked at the screen, it was his superior. He froze for a brief second, then quickly picked up the call. A stern voice came through the line. Hung, we've made new progress in the case involving your mother. We need you to come to the station immediately to provide more information and assist in the investigation. This is important. The room fell silent. Ha and his mother put down their chopsticks, while Hoai tightened her hold on Tony's hand, her eyes full of worry as they turned toward Hung. He gripped his phone tightly, taking a deep breath to steady himself. In that moment, it felt as if his heart was being crushed. That was his mother, the woman who gave him life, yet she was also the one who had pushed Hoai, the woman he loved, to the edge of despair. Hung stood up, his gaze so resolute that no one in the room could say a word. He turned to Hoai, gave her a reassuring nod, and spoke in a calm but unwavering voice. I have to go. Even if she's my mother, she cannot escape responsibility. I won't let you suffer any more injustice." With that, Hùng quickly bid everyone goodbye. He threw on his coat and walked out without looking back. The door closed behind him, leaving Hoai standing there in silence, watching him go, her heart torn between worry and pride. Because she knew that man, no matter how painful it was, would still choose justice. And above all, he would choose to protect her with everything he had. At the station, the atmosphere in the meeting room was so tense that even the sound of papers being flipped echoed sharply. Hung's superior, wearing a stern expression, placed a thick file filled with images and the latest reports in front of him. "Hung," his superior said, his voice low and firm, "we've obtained verified intelligence. Your mother is currently hiding in a border area. The terrain there is treacherous, the jurisdiction complicated, it's going to be extremely difficult to track her down." Hung clenched his fists, his eyes fixed on the photographs. They were blurry security camera images, faint traces at best, but every single piece of evidence pointed to one undeniable conclusion. The superior continued. "We need you to provide more information, her physical description, daily habits, and especially details about her medical condition. If she really is ill, she'll likely need to buy medicine or visit local clinics near that region. This could be our most crucial lead to narrow down the search and apprehend her." For a moment, Hung sat in silence. In his mind flashed the image of his mother, the once gentle woman who had cared for him when he was a child, now reduced to someone cold and unrecognizable, a woman who had hurt Hoai without hesitation. His heart felt as though it were being torn in two. But then, he took a deep breath, his gaze hardening with determination. "Yes, I'll cooperate fully. I don't want her to keep running. And more than anything, I won't let Hoai suffer any further because of this." Without another word, Hung began listing everything he knew: his mother's dependence on her heart medication, her tendency to frequent the same pharmacies, even the names of a few old acquaintances she trusted who lived near the border area. His superior nodded, carefully noting down every detail. The atmosphere in the room shifted. This was no longer just an ordinary investigation, it was a declaration of war. And Hung, though burdened by pain, was the first to sign the sentence that his own mother would ultimately have to face. Based on his superior's instructions and suggestions, Hung initially couldn't help but hesitate. Though he was an upright police officer, the thought of personally handing over information that could lead to his mother's arrest, trial, and possibly the harshest sentence, pierced his heart like a blade. In that moment, Hung looked down at the file, his hands trembling slightly. The image of his once kind mother from his childhood came rushing back, clashing painfully with the cold, calculating woman he was now forced to confront in reality. But then, Hung drew in a long, deep breath. He told himself, mother chose this path, and justice cannot be stopped by blood ties. If I cover for her, I'd be betraying not only Hoai, but also my own ideals as a police officer. With unwavering resolve in his eyes, Hung rose to his feet, looked straight at his superior, and declared, "Sir, I will provide everything I know. If she truly is guilty, I will not protect her. I only ask one thing, please, if possible, bring her in safely." After that, Hung handed over every crucial piece of information: his mother's daily routines, her travel patterns, even the diabetes she had been treating for years. He knew these details would be the key to narrowing down her hideout. However, because he was directly related to the suspect, his superiors required him to stay out of the task force. Hung was forbidden from participating in the actual arrest to avoid emotional conflict. His role was now limited to supporting from afar and providing further information if necessary. And then, thanks to Hung's leads, the investigators quickly uncovered a critical clue: footage from a surveillance camera at a small hospital near the border. In the video, Hung's mother appeared, her face gaunt and weary, as she hurried to the reception desk to get her diabetes medication. The task force immediately redirected all resources to this location. To them, this wasn't just a lead, it was the key that would finally bring her to justice. As soon as the task force received the information from the hospital's security camera, they immediately deployed an ambush plan. Numerous officers were discreetly stationed around the area, especially at the hospital's entrances and exits. Every move was calculated with utmost caution, determined not to give her a single chance to escape. However, Hung's mother was an extremely cautious woman. After spending so long on the run, she had learned to observe every detail around her. The moment she stepped into the hospital, she quickly noticed a few people behaving strangely, those watchful eyes that never left her, those footsteps that seemed to deliberately keep their distance while still tailing her. Her heart pounded wildly. Without hesitation, she changed direction. Just as the investigators were about to close in, Hung's mother suddenly bolted toward the hospital's back door, a narrow, rarely noticed exit. Chaos erupted instantly, and the urgent call spread through the radios. Target on the run. Back exit. Lock down the area immediately. The officers quickly split into teams, some sealing off the perimeter while others pursued her trail. But she was reckless and desperate, weaving through the narrow alleys behind the hospital as if she had anticipated this exact scenario. At that moment, the task force decided to call Hung to the scene. He was instructed not to participate directly in the arrest but to serve as the negotiator, in hopes that he could persuade his mother to surrender. Within minutes, Hung arrived. His face was tense, sweat beading on his forehead. Watching dozens of his colleagues chasing after his mother, Hung felt as if his heart were being torn apart. But he couldn't allow himself to hesitate. He knew that if she kept running, things would only get worse. The commanding officer approached, placed a firm hand on Hung's shoulder, and spoke with authority. "Hung, only you can make her stop. Use your bond, tell her to surrender. If she cooperates, the court may consider leniency." Hung nodded, his eyes red. He took the loudspeaker in trembling hands, his voice shaking but resolute. "Mom, it's me, Hung. I know you can hear me. Please, stop running. I'm begging you, surrender yourself. I promise, if you cooperate, I'll do everything I can to help reduce your sentence. But if you keep running, there will be no way back." In the suffocating tension of that moment, Hung's voice echoed through the streets, leaving everyone silent. For the first time, he wasn't speaking as a police officer, but as a son pleading for his mother to stop. The chase stretched from the hospital area all the way to the border region. At last, the task force managed to corner Hung's mother on a small bridge spanning a raging river. Police forces quickly surrounded her, blocking every possible escape route. The loudspeaker echoed across the tense air. "Mrs. Lan, surrender now. You are completely surrounded. If you cooperate, the investigation team will request leniency, helping you receive the lightest possible sentence." But Hung's mother stood her ground, her back pressed against the bridge's railing, her eyes filled with panic yet fierce determination. She shouted, her voice hoarse from fear and anger. "Stay away from me. If I'm caught, I won't just live in disgrace, I'll drag Hung down with me. I'd rather die than watch my son lose everything." The task force continued to plead with her, but she grew more and more desperate. Then, in the midst of the chaos, a young boy of about 7 walked across the bridge with his mother. Seizing the opportunity, Hung's mother lunged forward, grabbing the child and holding him tightly like a human shield. Screams erupted from the bystanders. The scene instantly escalated into a hostage crisis. The officers raised their guns, but none dared to fire. The commander immediately ordered, "Hold your fire. Stay in position. No one moves recklessly." Hung's mother dragged the boy closer to the edge of the bridge, her eyes flashing with sheer desperation. "Back off, or I'll jump with him." At that moment, Hung was called to the scene. As he stepped forward and saw his mother using an innocent child as a shield, his heart clenched painfully. His colleagues stood silent, giving him space to approach. He took the loudspeaker, his voice trembling but resolute. "Mom, please don't do this. Let the boy go, I'm begging you. We can fix this. If you keep going like this, you won't just destroy yourself, you'll hurt an innocent child." Mrs. Land looked at her son, tears welling in her eyes, but defiance still burned within her. "Hung, I can't let you lose everything because of me. If I get arrested, you'll be expelled from the force. I won't let you live in disgrace like that." Hung stepped closer, tears streaming down his face, but his voice rang out louder than ever. "Mom, I'd rather be a police officer who loses his mother, than a son who turns a blind eye to crime. Please, Mom, stop this." The air on the bridge grew suffocating. Everyone held their breath, waiting to see if Mrs. Land would let go, or push them all into a tragedy from which there would be no return. The scene erupted in chaos amid the howling wind and the booming voice of the police loudspeakers echoing across the area. The flashing lights from the patrol vehicles illuminated the small border bridge, casting a stark glow on Mrs. Land as she trembled at the edge, clutching the child in her arms like her last desperate lifeline. Below, the raging river roared violently, ready to swallow anything that fell into its depths. Hung stepped forward, each footfall heavy as if he were walking on his own heart. Holding the loudspeaker, his voice came out hoarse but unwavering. "Mom, let the boy go. Please. I promise I won't abandon you. I'll do everything I can to help you get a lighter sentence. But you have to trust me, trust justice." Mrs. Land shook her head frantically, tears mixing with the cold rain that lashed against her weathered face. She screamed, her voice raw with bitterness and despair. "No. Hung. You don't understand anything. This is all because of that woman, Hoai. If it weren't for her, I wouldn't be in this mess. Leave her, Hung. Leave her, and I'll turn myself in." The task force held their breath. Everyone knew that the slightest misstep could turn this situation into a tragedy. Hung clenched his fists, his eyes burning red as he shouted through the heavy air. "Mom. Hoai isn't to blame. She's the woman I love. If you love me, please don't make me choose like this." Mrs. Land froze. For a fleeting moment, her gaze wavered, but then it twisted into a bitter, broken smile. "So, you've chosen her, over your mother?" Hung's voice cracked with pain as he took another step forward. "I'm not choosing anyone, Mom. I'm choosing what's right. I'll always be your son, but I'm also a police officer. I can't turn my back on justice, and I won't abandon Hoai either." A deadly silence gripped the bridge. And then, suddenly, Mrs. Land laughed, a cold, jagged sound that tore through the night air. Then, "I have nothing left to lose." In that split second, she shoved the boy forward. Hung's instincts as a policeman kicked in, he lunged forward and caught the child safely in his arms. But when he looked up, the only thing he saw was his mother, Mrs. Land, standing at the edge of the bridge, her eyes brimming with pain and regret. "Mom!" Hung's scream tore through the night, raw and heart-wrenching. Mrs. Land let go. Her body plunged into the icy river below. The sound of water exploding on impact mingled with Hung's desperate cry, leaving the entire task force frozen in stunned silence. "Get her out now," the commanding officer shouted. Several officers dove into the raging waters, but the river at the border was like a monstrous beast, swallowing every glimmer of hope. Hung collapsed to his knees on the bridge, clutching the trembling child tightly in his arms. In that moment, it felt as if his entire world had fallen apart. ChatGPT said. The sound of the rushing river, mixed with the howling wind, made the atmosphere unbearably tense. Hung bolted toward the edge of the bridge, his eyes burning with raw anguish. He screamed out into the void. "Mom! Please, don't!" But there was only emptiness. The raging waters below swallowed his mother's frail figure, leaving nothing but the echo of his voice lost in the night. In that moment, Hung didn't think, he was ready to dive headfirst into the river to save her, no matter the danger. But before he could leap, two officers grabbed him tightly from behind. "Hung! Calm down. The current's too strong, you'll die too," one of his colleagues shouted firmly, but to Hung, everything sounded distant, muffled by despair. He thrashed wildly, his tear-filled eyes desperate, his voice breaking into a hoarse cry. "Let me go. I have to save her. My mom, she's still down there." But his strength was fading fast. His body gave out. His knees hit the cold concrete of the bridge, and his whole frame trembled violently. His breath came in ragged gasps. Then, to the shock of everyone around him, Hung collapsed entirely, unconscious from sheer grief and panic. No one spoke. The scene was suffocatingly silent, broken only by the relentless roar of the river. The officers exchanged heavy glances, their eyes filled with sorrow. A few of them rushed down toward the riverbank with life buoys and flashlights, but the border waters were merciless. The search was almost hopeless. Hung's superior clenched his fists tightly, his voice grim as he ordered the rescue team to bring in more equipment. Yet deep inside, an unshakable heaviness weighed on him. Meanwhile, Hung lay motionless on the bridge, his pale face twisted in anguish, his hands still reaching instinctively toward the river, as if he could somehow grasp the last trace of the mother he loved, despite her sins, and who had just been torn away from him forever. No one dared speak. In that moment, the grief was so deep, so raw, that words were meaningless. The border river that night was ice-cold, as if determined to drown every last shred of hope. The image of his mother throwing herself into the water was seared into Hung's mind, an unhealable wound. He collapsed at the edge of the bridge, trembling hands reaching out toward the raging current, only to grasp at empty air. The howling wind mixed with the shouts of the rescue team, tightening the suffocating tension in the air. In that haze of despair, Hung was like a man possessed. He was both a righteous police officer and a filial son, torn apart by grief. This pain was not only because he had lost his mother, but because even in her final moments, she still clung to her resentment toward Hoai, the woman he loved more than his own life. She had refused to admit her wrongs, refused to forgive, and in the end, chose to end everything in utter desperation. But is Hung's mother truly gone, or will fate deliver an unexpected twist? And Hung, standing between two chasms, his love for Hoai and his duty as a son, how will he face it all? And what about Hoai? When she hears this devastating news, will she have the strength to stand by Hung's side, or will the crushing weight of guilt and sorrow push her away? This is only the beginning. Unresolved conflicts, hidden secrets, and the relentless clash between family, love, and justice are still waiting ahead. And what do you think? Is Hung's mother still alive, or has everything truly ended in tragedy? Will Hung choose love, or will he be swallowed by the grief of losing his mother? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and let's discuss what might happen in the next episode.
Xin Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì kênh của mình tiếp tục đưa đến với mọi người câu chuyện tình yêu của mẹ đơn thân Lý Hoài Ca và cảnh sát Hùng. Xin lỗi mọi người. Trong tập này thì mọi người cũng có thể thấy là tình tiết nó đang diễn biến rất là gay cấn khi cuộc rượt đuổi và truy bắt mẹ của Hùng ở khu vực biên giới đang diễn ra giữa đội đặc nhiệm công an. Để khuyên bà ra đầu thú thì đã mời cảnh sát Hùng đến để khuyên bảo, tuy nhiên thì bà đã dùng cách cực đoan nhất là nhảy xuống dòng sông. Vậy thì liệu có thể cứu được mẹ Hùng hay không, và mọi chuyện sẽ tiếp diễn như thế nào thì mời mọi người cùng đón xem những tập tiếp theo để đón xem diễn biến câu chuyện nha mọi người.